I really think if we're going to talk about this, I think David wrote the relationship between my character Pussy and Tony Soprano as friends because they really were friends. They ran together. They were close, you know.
Yeah.
Hey, Ben, how soon did you know that you were going to be wired up as an informant? Like, had you guys been recording for a while and you were a big part of the show?
Well, what happened is he says, you're either going to go away or you're going to wear a wire. So Pussy was a rat from day one.
This is Inside the Life with Giovanni and Dutch, produced by the Mob Museum, presented by Levy Online and Levy Production Group. Giovanni, Rocco, and Dutch McAlpin are former police and federal task force operatives. They infiltrated drug cartels, outlaw motorcycle groups, and the mafia. Now, they share their stories, along with others who have gone inside the life.
On this episode, we're going to get an opportunity to meet with Vincent Pastore, Big Pussy from The Sopranos. I know me growing up, you know, unlike you, I didn't grow up around gangsters. I wasn't around the Italian-American community as much. So The Sopranos was kind of an introduction and kind of a look for people like me and people who haven't been around those kind of folks as much to what that culture looks like.
You'll hear how he explains, I don't come from that life, okay? I'm Italian-American. I'm not a gangster. I portray one on TV, and his experiences that he had before he was an actor. I mean, this guy started at the age of 42 acting. So it was his nightclub days, his days in his father growing up. He explains his dad being a bookie and being from that culture, not from the life, but from the culture.
With your book, Inside the Life, with the real Sopranos, you know, it's a little bit personal. It's kind of close to home.
It's bringing pop culture meets the real world, right? And I think that's what keeps people hungry for the Sopranos, right? Just anything Sopranos. Even if you weren't a Sopranos fan back then in the 90s when it premiered, you know, the new generation's starting to watch it, right? And just the fact that the conversations with the Sopranos, right? Conversations with him and Steve Schirripa and Michael Imperioli. They're doing that whole tour because people are still hungry for it.
Yeah.
They still want more to Sopranos. Even though Big Pussy's dead, they still want him to come back to life so they can learn something else from him. And I want to jump into this because our time is limited. So I want to say hello to Vinny Pastore. How are you, Vin?
Good morning out there. How you guys doing?
Good morning. I'm doing great. Thanks for taking the time to be with us. What I would like to do, Dutch, is just kind of share Vinny's life, how you got started in acting. I mean, you were 42 years old when you started, right? You were a bit older when you started.
I was in the military. I got out 1967 on the GI Bill, so I went to Pace College downtown, and I was studying, you know. But I started, you know, I had a 10 bar to supplement my income, and then the bar life overtook my academic life, and I became a club owner.
Okay.
And I wind up owning clubs in New Rochelle, New York, up in Westchester here. And I owned a place called Crazy Horse, and I even wrote a story about it, about the play. The play is about the bar, because in that particular time in my life, my father, Johnny, God bless him, who was a bookie. He was a neighborhood bookie. Now, a bookie back then is a guy who walks around with a paper bag and collects numbers, you know? Right. It ain't like, you know, I mean, you go down a corner now and buy a lotto ticket. My father walked around with the football tickets, you know, and he sold the tickets. You know, you pick your games and stuff.
Yeah.
And that's what Daddy did. And I was shaken down a couple of times in my club by these Wiseguys that came in from the Bronx.
Right.
The fact that my father was so respected, they told these guys to leave me alone. And that's true.
Yeah. Yeah.
Somebody asked me on a question, who was the first wise guy you ever met? And I remember saying, it was almost like a scene from Goodfellas. I was at a bar, and I looked up and I saw this guy all dappered out. I'm not going to say his name.
Right. Yeah.
But he was the first wise guy that I kind of encountered, that I kind of associated wise guy. But you got to remember, we grew up watching Jimmy Cagney, Humphrey Bogart movies.
Right.
Mm-hmm. You know, that was a White Heat. You know, they made me a criminal, Garfield, all that stuff. That's what we grew up on. The Dead End Kids.
Right.
You know, that's what we grew up on. And I was working in New Rochelle when Godfather premiered, and I went to a midnight show. And when I saw The Godfather, I said, Oh, good. Now they're going to start hiring Italian Americans to act because they had it before that. They had Kirk Douglas playing a wise guy, Paul Mooney playing a wise guy, Edward G. Robinson playing a wise guy, Mogi playing a wise guy.
Cagney,
so when Pacino broke through, that's when boom, and that's why the experience on Goodfellas was a stepping stone for me because Marty asked me about my club life.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he was the club owner. And I told him a story what happened to me on one particular Christmas Eve, and a disco I was running, and he said, "That's just like what they do to Sonny Bamboo. They shook him down."
Yeah,
and I picked that up. So my life was kind of parallel to all of that, but my mother's family didn't want my father to be involved in that life.
We were undercover guys, but we drew from our real true life experiences to make us better at what we were doing. I think you being in your club and being around the gangsters and the wise guys, probably it's the same thing, right? Like you take on some of those characteristics and it becomes what you do in your roles, do you think?
Because now I'm teaching at the same school that I studied at in the early 90s, HB Studios in the Village. And I got this kid yesterday working on a scene where he's a wise guy waiting for his boss to get out of court. And after they read the scene, I said, "You guys just read it like two college kids." I said, "You got to tap into the way they talk, the way they act, the way they move, the way they dress, the people, all that stuff. It's all signature,
Yeah, it is. It is."
And I said to the kid, he said, "Well, you got any notes for me?" I said, "Yeah, go watch Goodfellas."
Yeah.
Kidding.
But see, that was my problem, Vin, right? So I'm born and raised in Hudson County, right? I'm a Bayonne kid, Jersey City. I grew up around these guys, right?
Yeah,
Coming up around
we had a liquor store in the corner of Jersey City called Pastore's.
Yeah, I know it. I remember it. Yeah.
And down the corner is where we shot Big Pussy's first house. In the back of it was the cemetery.
Yep. Yeah. The graveyard was in the back.
That?
Yeah, I remember.
It was my second cousin. They said Pastore in Jersey and in Baltimore too, Pastore. And in Providence.
Yeah, well, growing up in that neighborhood, I was familiar with it very much like you, right? So you had the I know when I infiltrated them, and ultimately my case wound up being infiltrating the real Sopranos, I had a lot of stress, right? Here I was very much like your character, Big Pussy, wearing the wire, right? I would imagine when you suited up, you knew you were in a role and you were acting, but I would imagine your emotions were still pumping, right? Because in real life, the neighborhoods you come from, where I come from, you don't want to be looked at as a rat.
No, what happened too, guys, is that I moved when my club went down the tube. So that's when I was delivering furniture, trying doing anything to make a buck. And I moved to a neighborhood in the Bronx where there was a social club on each side of the street.
Yeah.
And after I did Gotti, these guys were coming out of the club because they loved my portrayal of Ruggiero.
Yeah.
And we tell this story on our Soprano show, me and Michael and Steven, which I want to talk about. And what happened is one particular guy, I'll just say his name was Gigi, it was his club. He loved me. And the picture was hanging up in the club. But when he saw that I became a rat, Sopranos, he took the picture down, threw it in the garbage, and he said, "Tell Vinny don't come in here no more."
Yeah,
right.
Man, that had to hurt a little bit.
Yeah. And I would imagine after that you had a lot of emotions because you knew you were coming off the show, and people back in the neighborhood were going to look at you that way, and it was only a character.
Well, by then I was out of that neighborhood. Gotti. I made enough money on Gotti to move out of that neighborhood. I was living in an apartment for $375. I mean, it was like a shoebox.
Yeah.
I came out here, and then with the money from Sopranos, I bought my own house where I am now.
Yeah.
Well, you grow up in the Bronx, you grow up in Queens, you grow up in Brooklyn, you grow up in Staten Island. You have this Jersey
Yeah.
City, Hoboken, all that. You have this. It's that whole attitude, that whole mentality, that wise guy mentality.
Right. And the neighborhood. I remember when you guys were filming in the neighborhood, I was still working. I would stop by the sets. I was still working undercover roles, so I could never come on a set and meet everybody. But just to watch the whole neighborhood in that area come out and support you guys.
Over there to church Satriali's and everything?
Yeah, all around. Every time you guys were in Jersey, everybody would flock out there because you had the support of the community. I mean, they were all in. They bought in. They loved it.
Well, let me ask you, what made you all of a sudden? Well, you said you were working on the Real Guys.
Yeah. So what happened was, I had 20 some odd years of working undercover by that point in my career when this case happened with the DeCavalcantes. I showed up for a drug deal down in Atlantic City. And from there, I just, I met a guy who was hooked up with a guy. They saw money in me. They saw the opportunity to make money. And next thing you know, the next 3 years of my life, it just spiraled out of control. And I met this guy. I got introduced. I mean, my capo.
But let me ask you something. Now you're on a talk show. How come you're still walking around?
I know. You're not kidding. Listen, the time is right to come out. It's a different world, right?
Folks, they have their own podcasts.
Yeah. I wrote a book because, again, when that case ruined my career. That I was forced to retire and go into hiding for a while. And
really,
it took its toll. I was doing investigations at the time. I was doing RICO cases against some real wise guys, made guys, and we would do surveillance. They would go to your parties. They would go to the Soprano premiere parties and stuff. And then we would do search warrants, and we get everybody's picture, the cast, and these guys were all getting their pictures taken with you guys. We were pulling them out of their desk drawers, their dresser drawers in the house. I mean, you guys really had an impact. The whole cast, the whole crew.
And we still do. We just did. We run around. Me, Steve Schirripa, and Mike Imperioli. We run around with a show called Comedy and Conversations with the Sopranos. What we do with this is we go up, and the questions are like, Steve, what was your audition like? Michael, what was your audition like? Vinny, what was your audition like? Did mobsters ever bother you? It's stuff like that, and the audience loves this stuff.
Yeah, I mean, it's impactful. I mean, like I said, you were around during the filming of Gotti. I think I was doing some research for this interview, and Sonny Francese's name came up. And, the inspiration for some of the roles that he, he was a gangster's gangster. He was an inspiration.
I worked on Mickey Blue Eyes, and the movie would have never got done if it wasn't for Sonny.
Yeah, you're right.
His Hurley loved him.
Yeah.
You guys got a lot in common here, and you got a lot going on. I'm kind of curious, do you think in a way, though, even though we talked about they made you a snitch or a source or an informant in the show, and he took your picture down, are some of the wise guys and gangsters thankful that someone can actually tell their story a little bit too? I mean, it sounds like
no, they're sweethearts. They love me. I mean, there's this one guy. They treat me like I'm the nephew.
Listen, that was the hardest part. Some of that was the hardest part for me because I'm familiar with the culture, right? I'm familiar with the family lifestyle. It was very hard.
You just got to be careful what you say. You don't want to get yourself in trouble. You don't want to put yourself in jeopardy. You don't want to come home and you see a house burned down. You know what I'm saying? You got.
That's very genuine.
It's like my father, God bless my father, Johnny. He was loaning money until he died at 97 in his deathbed. I swear to God, the phone rang and somebody wanted to borrow money from him. I said, what are you talking about? My father's not going to be here on Monday. What do you want to borrow money from? And my father was the kind of guy, if you needed money, he would loan it to you. And if you couldn't pay it back, he didn't care because he lived on the vig.
Yeah. That's the way it was done.
He didn't care.
Yeah.
But I was asked by Mr. Steven Schirripa to please talk about conversations and comedy with the Sopranos because we're moving around. We did Australia. We did 7 cities. We do it on the weekends. It's a fun show.
Yeah. And
we get to see our fans. We have an average audience of 900 people.
Wow, that's pretty good.
Yeah. And it's funny. And then we do a Q&A after. They're asking us very similar questions. One of the questions they keep asking me is, what did you think of the ending? And, it's like, what do you guys think of the ending of The Sopranos?
You could take it different ways, right? You could take it no matter how you wanted it to end. That's what I loved about the beauty of the way they ended it was if I thought of it a certain way, if I thought that was his demise and that was the minute that guy walking in past the family and he was the gunman, And if I wanted that scenario, that's how it ended.
We know they would never do a hit with the kids around in the diner.
Never, never. But those who don't know, who don't know the lifestyle, yeah.
I think why David went to black is because the truth is, and we talk about this, is Jimmy was getting really tired of doing the show. He was getting tired, man.
Yeah.
Put on a lot of weight. It was all on his shoulders.
Yeah.
You're talking about 7 straight years. And in between, he'd go do a movie. He'd go do a Castle with Robert Redford. He'd go do a movie with Tom Hanks. Time Lord. He would just want to keep working. And then he was doing theater.
Yeah.
We would go see Jimmy, and theater was tough because you got to retain all those lines. It's tough, and he hated it, but it was good for him. You see, I met Jimmy when he was doing. I met Jimmy on a film by Sidney Lumet, and Jimmy had a lead role. And Andy Garcia was in it, and I was a day player, but Jimmy was friendly to everybody. And then I was studying with Jimmy with this guy called Nico Hartos, really method. And then all of a sudden, boom, me and Jimmy became. I really think, if we're going to talk about this, I think David wrote the relationship between my character, Pussy, and Tony Soprano as friends because they really were friends. They ran together. They were close,
Yeah.
Hey, Vinny, whenever they wrote the character, how soon did you know that you were going to be wired up as an informant? Like, had you guys been recording for a while and you were a big part of the show?
What happened is that I don't think David wrote the pilot. We shot the pilot. When you do a pilot in this business, you say, okay, give me my check. Forget about it. You don't think it's going to get picked up.
Right.
And then it was around Christmas, and I got a phone call saying the show got picked up and they're going to sign us. Now, when they sign you, guys, they sign you for 7 years.
Whoa.
Okay? But the deal is they could say, okay, goodbye. You can't walk off, but they can tell you to take a walk.
Right.
So during the first year, nobody said to me anything about Big Pussy was a rat. They didn't play that. They played it like it was implied, and that's why. So did I not want to take my shirt off when Paulie Walnuts told me to take my shirt off because of my back, or was I wearing a wire? Well, figure it out. It's in the season, the whole black DVD season.
Yeah.
Frankie Pellegrino, who was on Gotti with us, and he played the Fed guy in Sopranos. There's a scene where he busts me, and he had me under the light. It's in there. And he says, you're either going to go away or you're going to wear a wire.
Yeah.
And that's when... and it was before all that happened in season 1. We shot a scene. It was a flashback. It was me, Michael Rispoli, and Jimmy. We were in a Holiday Johnson in Asbury. It was a flashback. So Pussy was a rat from day one.
Right. But you didn't know it when you took the role.
No, and I kind of started to discover it as we went along. But between season 1 and season 2, he called me up. I was living down the corner. He said, Vinny, it's Dave. What's up? He said, so everybody wants to know where's Pussy. You blew up over the internet. By the way, you are the rat. And it's going to go down this year. And I almost said to him, but I thought you gave me a 7-year contract. That's saying nothing. But you know what he did, guys? They wrote me a great season.
Yeah.
Frankie Renzulli out of Providence. He went to write for the practice. He calls me up. And he says, I got you 3 episodes with David Kelly. So even though I got killed up to Sopranos, I got work.
Yeah.
And then I'm working in LA on the practice. And I had done a photo shoot of me in a sweatsuit on the side of the Hilton going down Sunset Boulevard with a cigar. Yeah. Guy Ritchie was driving down the street going to his house. He saw that. He called me saying that I was in LA shooting practice. So it was my day off. And my manager said, you got to go to Sunset Boulevard. Guy Ritchie wants to meet you. I said, what? And I went over and I meet Guy Ritchie, and he gave me the role in Revolver.
Right.
Without even auditioning. And that's where my life went, It
just changed. It took a change.
It just went to offers. Serving Sarah, which I shot with Matthew Perry and Liz Hurley. I didn't audition. It's just all of a sudden the offers started coming in,
Well, you still look and sound the same. I think it's a you're a very genuine person, and I don't know if you're always acting. I think that they don't need to have a casting call with you, an interview. They're like, this is who we want. He represents this character traits, this person, you know?
Yeah.
You're walking around in a sweatsuit and a cigar because that's what you like, not because you're trying to be somebody, right? That's just how you dress, and that's how you are.
Now, after that episode, right, after you get whacked out, did you find, you found work, and it's great that your career really took off.
Crazy. I worked with Denzel on The Hurricane. I worked with Deuces Wild with Jimmy Franco. That's when I met Jimmy in L.A. With Scott Calvert. I had a show called Bull, but it only worked for. I was working like nuts.
I
was telling these guys, because Wednesday we worked with some guys, some British actors, and they were from Glasgow. And I said I went over there and I worked with Dan Day on a film called American Cousins. I was working like crazy.
Yeah. You even did cartoons. You did the kids thing, the Shark Tale with the octopus. And even that, you came out in that, and everybody loved you. You know, you just have this personality about you and this way about you.
Yeah, Shark Tale was great. I have a good relationship with De Niro. He lets me read a lot for him.
Okay.
You know, sometimes like when he was going to analyze that, not this, that.
Yeah.
Vinny wasn't coming back. He wasn't coming back to analyze that. He wanted a lot of money. So Billy Crystal and Bobby brought me in to read, and I was going to play the cousin.
Okay.
And all of a sudden, Vinny said, I'm coming back. He negotiated his deal again. But, you know, it's ironic. Joe Fiorelli was like Sean Penn's godfather.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, great actor.
That's why he was in State of Grace.
Okay.
And Joe Fiorelli did Bullets Over Broadway, the movie with Chaz.
Yeah.
And then when we went to Broadway, I played Joe's role on Broadway in the musical version of Bullets Over Broadway. And I was watching the movie the other day because Sirico's in it, Tony Darrow's in it, they're all in it, Chaz is in it.
Right.
And Woody didn't change one word. I had the same words that Fiorelli had in the movie. The only thing is that I was singing too.
Oh, okay.
You know? And I would have never been in Bullets Over Broadway if it wasn't for Sopranos, because Susan Stroman, the director, said I called everybody in. And I was up against Tony Darrow. It was either me or Tony, you know? And Tony calls me. He's a funny guy. Tony calls me earlier on a Saturday morning. He says, Woody went with you. He wanted the fat guy. That's why I got the part, because I'm the fat guy.
Yeah, right.
Did you talked about they never changed the lines. Everything stayed exactly the same. When you're acting or when you were doing any of your roles, is there times when you don't forget your lines, but you just say something ad lib, you say something different because it's more natural for you?
I worked Wednesday, and I showed up on the set, and after working on 9 pages of dialogue, I said, "Can we rehearse?" And our director, he just ripped up the script. He said, "We lost the location." So we're not doing those lines I just worked on for 3 days.
Right.
He says, "No, we're going to improvise." It turned out to be funnier.
Right.
It's easier sometimes you ad lib, and I'd kind of ask that because with the show particularly, we're talking about what it's like undercover and is it portrayed well in the shows and stuff. And like for us, we oftentimes had plans too. They're like, this is exactly how things would go. But once you walk through the room, you start to do things, you got to figure it out. You just got to figure it out.
I adapt. You two guys were in my acting class, like yesterday. I looked over and I'm doing a scene from View from the Bridge with one of my actors. I said, "Where's Johnny?" "Oh, he can't come in today." I says, "Oh, okay, all right. Where's Michael?" "He can't come in today." I said, "Well, we're not doing View from the Bridge." I said, "What about Requiem?" And I went up there and I became the fight promoter in Requiem for a Heavyweight. And I say to the kids, there's guys in the class manager, I said, you have to adapt to the situation.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
You don't know what's going to happen.
Hope for the best, plan for the worst.
You got to adapt to that stuff.
You do.
You know?
You do.
Right.
Listen, the day that I went on a record with the family, with the DeCavalcantes, I had to drive down to Elizabeth, New Jersey, to what was your pork store, right, where you guys hung out at Satriale's. I drove to the real place. And as I came around the corner, you're standing in my mind. I see you. I see, James Gandolfini. I see all these guys, but it's the real guys. I mean, you guys portrayed it so well When I came around that corner, I had all the bosses of the family waiting for me. And unfortunately, right when I was in the middle of doing my infiltration, James Gandolfini had passed away. So when I went home and tried to decompress after a day of being around real guys and running around out here in Vegas or running around in New York and New Jersey, I would try to decompress, and I turned the TV on, and boom, there you are. Choking the hell out of somebody, burying somebody, doing whatever you're doing. I'm going, oh my God, I can't even relax.
Or killing Elvis.
Yeah, kill it. Yeah.
Somebody asked me the other night down in D.C. The Q&A with our show. What's the worst thing you ever did on the show? I said, when I killed Elvis. And some people got it and laughed.
Right.
And then later on, a guy in Q&A says, so Vinny, what was the worst thing you ever did on the show? I says, I told you when I killed Elvis. I said, people don't let me live it down. You gotta make a joke out of this stuff.
Yeah. Emotional, a lot of emotions on set, I would imagine, right? Because it's the culture, right?
The biggest emotional day I had, the boat scene was interior. Mm-hmm. That was interior in the studios, and we had the grips pushing the boat back from Mega Rock.
Right.
And we were there, usually it took 12 days to shoot an episode. Funhouse, David said, we got 20 days. We had 20 days.
Wow.
And they went over budget. After I got shot, and I'm lying down on the ground, guys, I don't want to move. Yeah. I'm lying there. Schirripa already took off the ring and stuff. And I'm lying there. All of a sudden, little Steven comes over and he puts this box on my belly. I said, what's that? He says, get up, you fat, And I got up, and I got it in the other room. It's a humidor.
Oh, really?
All Cuban cigars. And on the outside of the humidor, there's it's a black humidor. It's beautiful. As a little thing, you'll always be with us, Dominic, Michael, all the guys.
That's really cool.
I could probably sell this thing for $10,000.
No.
That's where and Schirripa was Tony, because Tony and I were very close. Mm-hmm. He was very mad with Henry Bronson. Henry said to him, Tony, when we wrap today, don't forget to give me that watch. And Tony said, you're not getting it back.
And he meant it. And
he said, what? He says, you're not getting this watch back. We just lost pussy. I'm keeping this watch. Little Steven and I are close as of today. His wife and I have a theater company in New York called Renegade. Little Steven was so upset. He couldn't talk to nobody. Mooney told me he went home. He wouldn't talk to nobody. They got rid of Vinny. What are they, crazy? Jimmy was heartbroken. Because
it's hard. The Sopranos wasn't all murder and mayhem. The family dynamic, the mental health aspect of it, all the things that was written into those scripts. That's what kept it going for so long, in my opinion.
Yes.
And then the more you became family, the more we became your family, right? And that's the way I look at it. No matter fan favorite or not. I mean, it didn't matter who it was. The whole unit, the whole cast was just.
But you know what, guys? It was an acting experience. You learn how to be an actor on these shows because they say, okay, you know your lines, let's do it. Can I get another take? No, we'll move on. Ooh, you gave me one shot, but they had like 3 cameras on you.
Culturally, the Italian culture and all the people that you had, walk-ons, the people that you would pull from the neighborhood.
So many people in the Italian American community were against the show.
In the beginning,
they said it bad.
Yeah, but when you realized it wasn't just, like I said, it wasn't just all murder and mayhem. It became a cultural thing. It became about the food. It became about the family. It became about the connections. That's when, in my opinion, that's when it changed.
Yeah, but you can also think about it as an achievement in the arts community. Look at all the Italian-American actors that got work out of that.
Right, without a doubt.
Right.
Sheila and Georgianne, after season 1, Georgianne Walken, Chris's wife, she was a casting director. She said, Vinny, I need some names. Send me headshots and resumes of 20 of your good actor friends. They all got jobs.
Right.
They all got jobs. She wanted the real deal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it worked. It worked.
Yeah. And it worked. Right.
Yeah, it worked. Now, what do you have coming up? What are you doing next?
Well, I got a Sopranos show. We're looking forward to coming out there. I told the guys I was going to push it, and they said, Stephen and Michael said, tell the guys thanks. So they're telling me to tell you guys thanks for letting us mention the shows out there.
Absolutely. When you hear it. Yeah, come to the Mob Museum. This is where it's at. This is where the history is.
Back to your clubs real quick. You know, you talk about the mob guys that went there. Did you have any other kind of characters that came into your clubs in the old days back in the 80s? Like,
I had all the bikers coming in.
Yeah.
That's what I wondered. They all kind of hung out and mingled together pretty well,
I
right?
got along with them.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say the name of the club.
No, that's fair. I understand.
We don't either.
So you had exposure to all, like a really diverse kind of gangster, really.
We'll leave it at that. Yeah.
They used to come and hang out in my club. They didn't bother me.
No, but that's interesting to me because that also helps develop you. You know, you're able to talk and communicate with a big swing of people that way. You know what I'm saying?
But it's not just your experience, right? That's across the board. The bikers and the traditional Cosa Nostra, they always work together. They've always, Jersey, New York, no matter where it was. So here I was infiltrating them. When they gave me the mission, I had to clip 2 guys. Initially I was supposed to, and then they cut it back to 1. The guy I was going to clip was a May guy. And then when I created the scenario to bring Dutch in, and he was my guy, I had a biker background. In the 90s, I was an outlaw biker as an undercover. I didn't look like this.
Well, the president of one of the clubs lives around the corner from me. We're all friends. That's why I can't talk bad about nobody no more.
And that's okay. That's good.
Same with us. And that's why we do this show. That's why this show, Inside the Life, just works, because we're no longer on that side. We're like that neutral ground. And now it's just, we're a vessel for guys to tell their stories.
Yeah.
You know? And we understood it because we weren't always good guys. We were screw ups as kids. That's what made us great undercovers, because we came from a different life. You know, we didn't aspire just to be Captain America and join the, Team America, as they called it, the agents called it. We had that street life. We had that similar, we drew from our experiences just like you did. Your years in the club, we did the same thing. We drew from our personal life and we brought it to our undercover role.
You learn from them. You take a little bit of their character traits and not really steal it, but adapt it and use it to your favor,
Yeah.
I would love to talk about your role as Quack.
Yeah, let's because that's amazing. I tell you, I got a lot of good stories to tell about that. First of all, Armand had to approve who played Ruggiero. I was back at the Beacon Theater and I was drinking at the bar. And we had beepers back then. And my beeper went off and I go to the phone. Hello, it was my agent. He said, "Where'd you go?" I said, "I'm uptown having a drink. I'm going to go home." He says, "No, you got to get that back downtown. Armand Asante is waiting for you." And he said, "You ain't getting the role until he approves it."
Really?
That's how much power. So I said, "What?" So I got on the train, went downtown. I went upstairs. I was half in the bag, and I walked in. He was sitting there. He was sitting there like John Gotti. I says, "What you got to bother me for? I'm uptown having a drink, and you got to bring me downtown. What is this bullshit? This guy gave me the job." And he said, "Sit down." So after we got Armand and I clicked. So Armand turns to Robert. He said, "Listen, I'm going up a week early. I want Vinny up a week early. We need to get in character. We need to hang out." So that's the way he worked. So I went up to Toronto, and me and Armand were hanging out every night, going out.
Yeah.
He wanted to build that relationship.
Yeah.
So when the scene comes, when I'm dying with the cancer, I didn't know he was going to stick a cannoli in my mouth.
See, that was amazing.
That was just real and genuine.
I didn't know what he was doing. And all of a sudden I looked at him and I realized that Quack screwed up, talking on the phone so much. And I said, "I'm sorry."
I mean, that was so powerful. To me, that always stood out.
You think that really happened that way? That he went to visit him and gave him the cannoli? No. People say he didn't even go visit him.
Really?
That's what I heard. But when I was up in Canada, and I'm not dropping no names,
All right.
there were people to make sure we did it the right way.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when Sirico came out of that life, Tony. We all know that.
Right.
Tony Sirico came out of that life, but he decided there was going to, the way he always tells, I was going to be made, but I ran a little actor instead. He became an actor. Became one of my best friends.
Yeah.
When Tony and I were flying from LaGuardia to Toronto, he grabbed my hand, and he said, "This world is going to change your life." Little did we know that we were going to work together years later on Sopranos together. So it's crazy.
Yeah.
But we had the blessings from the guys from Brooklyn up there.
Well, it shows.
And he said you went out early and you wanted to hang out together, get in character together. I'm sure that's very valuable.
You two guys have a relationship. You do this show all the time. You gotta develop that relationship. All of a sudden, you're on the set. I'm this guy's lifelong friend.
Right.
You gotta develop that somehow. It's like when I'm teaching in my class. I said to the students, two people, did you work on this? Yeah, on Zoom. I said, how you gonna act on Zoom?
Right.
I mean, you're over there, I'm over. How you can't touch the guy, you can't kiss the guy, what are you doing?
Right.
I said, please, man, go over each other's houses. What's the matter? Your wife, and it's true. So I'm on, because we just did a movie called Don Q, me and Armand, about a guy who's living in Little Italy. He's delusional. And he comes back to the neighborhood, and Chuck Zito's running the neighborhood, and he's conflicting against him and Chuck. And then all of a sudden, he sees me eating in a restaurant. I play myself, Vincent Pastore, and he comes up to me, he says, ain't you blah, blah, blah. I said, no, I play that guy on TV. And he said, no, I got a job for you. And it's funny because he brings me on a hit.
Oh, no way.
It's funny. He brings me on a hit because he comes up there, and me and I'm on improv, and he comes up, he says to me, I'm standing on the corner, how you making out? I said, he's still in there. You packing? I said, what? What are you making this stuff up?
Yeah, no, you can't.
Yeah.
Well, the first time I'd ever been around any kind of gangster or even Italian American culture at all was through Giovanni. And he wants me to come with him to work undercover on this Decav family case. And I'm intimidated. I tell him, Giovanni, like, I've never been around a gangster. I don't know how to be around him. And so same thing. He says, come out to Vegas. I'm going to acclimate you. I hung out with him. We went to the bars. We hung out. We drank. Yeah. And just being around the culture and the community, it wasn't very long before I was comfortable. But had I not have done that and we just went right into set or
when I introduced my capo to him, exactly what you said, we did. We bonded. He saw that instantly. My capo was like, I get it. I don't need you to explain to me. He's your brother. I get it. He's your lifelong friend. You ride or die with this guy.
Where's that capo today?
He just got paroled.
Well, listen, I'm just an actor, so don't come after me.
No. But and that's why we know what it's like in the real world, right? We wired up. We only get one take in what we did, right? But the emotions that you bring, we felt that emotions. I could watch so many different things.
Tap into real stuff. I mean, I got kids.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, somebody's coming up to me and say, you're going to go away for 30 years. Who's going to take care of your kids? That's what you tap into.
Yeah.
Right.
You do.
Yeah.
I was seeing when I was in the bathroom, I was trying to put the wire on and I come out. Yeah. After I did that take, I was so upset. My head was screwed up.
That's an adrenaline dump. We experience that all the time. That's truly an adrenaline dump. While you were sitting there, those emotions, we wired guys up. I remember wiring May guys up when I wasn't an undercover and I was their handler. You did such a great job just, bringing that to light and showing the true emotions of it. Like we knew what it's like to feel those emotions, and you guys portrayed it perfectly.
We grew up we didn't like snitches. We weren't told never to tell on each other. We grew up that way too, but when we became professionals, now all of a sudden we're in a position where that's what we have to do. And I remember the first time they tried to tape the wire to my body, like, I was so nervous, I was sweating, the tape wouldn't stick. Yeah. And you could see that in you when they were wiring you up, even though it was just for the show. You could feel that energy and that emotion, like, man, I'm about to wear a wire about the guys, you know what I mean?
When people ask me what was my favorite episode, of course I say Funhouse, of course. Even the little subtleties like me and Silvio in the car.
Right.
Driving with Tom Petty in the background. Yeah. And he hands me a bottle. You want it? I said, too early. And then I drank it.
Right.
When we were on the boat, I went to Anthony, the prop guy. When he brought out the Cuervo, I said, this is tea. I want a real bottle. If you look at the shot of us, we were really buzzing.
You were actually doing shots of Cuervo?
We were really drinking. As a teacher, as a director, you don't encourage that because you don't want a drunk actor on your set.
No. Sure.
But I know that the more and more shots we would drink, the more loose we got for that, and it just relaxed. Like when Sirico, Paulie Walnuts pushed me when I was in the book, and he pushed me. Yeah. I didn't know that was coming. I did not know that was coming. That's all real stuff.
Yeah, you felt it. Yeah.
And I did one take, and then David said, "Give it to me one more time, Vinny, but don't beg."
Don't beg.
He said, "Wise guys don't beg." That's what he said to me.
Yeah.
I don't know. Is that true?
That is true. You don't beg.
You don't beg.
No, you don't
beg.
You
know you did bad. You're on your way out. Don't beg.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. You made your choice. That's the life you chose. You go out a
Yeah.
certain way. See, now
Yeah.
I wasn't in that life. I was pretending to be in that life, but guys,
Like me,
yeah,
I'm pretending to be in
right.
that life too.
And these guys are committed to
But
it.
you got different credibilities than I am. You're a police officer, both
Right.
you guys.
Right. Exactly.
Or were.
Were.
Past tense. In real life, we always work with informants. Snitches are real. They happen. We have to have them. And a lot of times they're doing it not out of their own free goodness of their heart, but because they need a deal, or maybe they're jealous or upset or they're broke, whatever, but they're motivated by something, but they're still internally terrified. Nobody wants to actually be the guy telling. So we had protocols in place to try to keep them safe. You try to minimize the dangers put on them, but at the end of the day, you're wearing a wire and you're going against the people that are supposed to trust you more than anybody else.
I think the most important scenes that I did where I showed my conflict when I was with Skip, the Fed,
Yeah.
and he kept asking me for information, and then I started to get delusional where his character actually thought he was so much undercover. He was like one of you guys.
Yeah.
And because I think what was happening is that Pussy thought he had a way out by helping. He thought by helping these guys, he would be able to live.
We had that happen so many times.
Yeah.
When we were wiring guys up and we were putting them in someplace, months and years of making wires and recordings against guys. They feel like they become like they're an agent. They think they're an agent, right? And they go, "Hey, listen, I can manipulate this. So why don't we do this?" Wait a minute. What do you mean we? You got a mouse? When did you get a mouse in your pocket? There's no we in this. You're going to jail. Like, you're working this off. And they would be very charged up. Yeah, listen, I got this guy, Vinny. We can go into him. And, always thinking one more will get me out of this.
Oh, we had an informant show up to come do a deal. He'd been working with us for a long time. He started to become so much on our team. He showed up with a gun one day. And we're like, "What are you doing? You can't carry a gun. You can't bring a gun with you." But in his head, he thought he was on our team. You know what I mean?
What did you guys think of Donnie Brasco, the movie with Johnny Depp, Pacino? Did you believe it was real?
Well, I think law enforcement undercover work in the 60s and 70s compared to the times that we did it has transitioned so much. I mean, we now have to actually wear audio and video recording devices. Everything is carefully documented. In those days, to authenticate something that you kind of remember is a little harder to do than what we have now.
Yeah.
Donnie Brasco, what was his real name?
Joe Pistone.
Yeah, he thought he really, in the movie and in the book, because I was up for that, but then we wound up doing Gotti. I wound up going up to Canada.
Yeah.
He really felt like he was becoming part of the mob.
I could speak to it that when you're around them for years, I'm around these guys for years. I was embedded. It's different when you're not committing crimes. And then eventually what happened was, in my case, I started running my own crew, right? I wasn't a made guy, but I was running a crew for my capo because he didn't have a soldier. He had just been released from prison. So here he saw something in me and again, because I was dressed nice, I was a good earner.
Right.
You get caught up in it, right? Because again, family is everything. And you start to identify with the culture. Hey, come on in. Let me make you some breakfast. Let me make you some peppers and eggs. Let me make you some coffee, and it becomes real life. You don't know if these guys are going to kill you. They might suspect you're a rat. That's the worst thing in our world you can ever be thought of as a rat.
Yeah.
Somebody told me if somebody comes up and says, "I'm going to kill you," they're not going to kill you.
I mean, some guys do. I've been around some serious guys that I thought,
Going to kill you, and then they wind up killing that person.
Yeah,
but I mean, there's those elements in those times when your heart's beating so fast that, like you said, you're trying to remember your lines. Who am I today? Where did I come from? How long have I been here? What am I supposed to be doing?
Right.
But somebody's got a gun in your face. It's hard for you to remember those lines.
Yeah.
But the other times when there's not so much intensity, being around the bad guys, we're driving nice cars, wearing nice clothes, got a pocket full of money, hanging out in the clubs. I mean, it's interesting. And after a while, you start to think, these guys really like me. These are my friends. You could, if you're not careful, fall into that. Yeah.
You become close.
Oh, listen, I remember the day I went on record. My capo vouched for me, and I'm sitting in front of the underboss. And all I can think of was you guys from The Sopranos, because here I am. I'm in the pork store. I'm in the real pork store where this half is the deli, right, and the pre-made food for lunch and whatnot, and over on this side is the butcher shop, right. And as I'm looking, he's straddling over me and we're talking, and I'm looking in the eyes of the underboss, and I'm being vouched for. I'm wearing 5 recorders, and I'm looking past him. There's a bone saw, there's a meat cleaver, there's a bloody apron. You know, I'm going, okay, at what point are they going to drag me into the basement? I'm from these neighborhoods. I know how things go. You know, there was no yelling cut. There was no yelling cut. That's for sure.
Yeah, I never experienced that kind of mayhem.
But you didn't, but you portrayed it. What you portrayed on the screen, I guess I keep going back to it because
this is what it is. This is what acting is. I mean,
Yeah.
If I was, it was one of my favorite all-time directors is Elie Kazan. Why? Well, he grew up in New Rochelle. I grew up in New Rochelle. He lived on Sickles Avenue. I lived on Sickles Avenue. He went to New Rochelle High School. I did. He directed On the Waterfront. You know, and the reason why he made the On the Waterfront is because they were all calling Kazan a rat. Because with the House of American Un-American Activities, he was testifying against people who were considered communists.
Yeah.
So he had to make On the Waterfront, you know, to justify the same thing when I work on Arthur Miller's View from the Bridge with Eddie Carbone. He becomes a rat. With Donnie Brasco's Pacino's character, he said, "I would die for you."
Mm-hmm.
They mean that. I would die for you. You would mean that.
Yeah.
And the family coming from Naples, you know, I know my family tree.
Yeah.
You know, and I told this to my family. We have a nice legacy now. For my granddaughter to be able to come to see her grandfather on stage in Washington, D.C., everybody asking for autographs, taking pictures. It's like a wake-up call for, who was my grandfather? I just know him from Shark Tale. Oh, he's an actor. Oh, he's famous.
Right.
You know, when can I watch The Sopranos, Ma? Stuff like that.
Oh, yeah.
Just watching The Sopranos for the first time.
Really?
No kidding.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. That probably feels nice.
They're just watching for the, one guy says, well, I don't know what happens to you, so don't tell me.
All these years
Well,
later.
I think it's kind of making a comeback again. You know, it had a big run. It was really popular, and then people had seen it. There's a whole new generation of people that are watching it for the first time.
So let me ask you this: did you ever hear the tapes that are on? It's on YouTube and all that. The real decavs, the real Sopranos. Season 1, when these mobsters and the boss of the family heard you guys and watched 1 or 2 episodes, and there's that tape, that famous tape when they're driving in the car and they go, "Hey, did you see this show on HBO last night?" And they're talking about the Sopranos, and verbatim they go, "Yeah, that's supposed to be us." Have you ever heard that tape?
No, but I heard about it.
Yeah, good tape, great tape.
That's supposed to be us.
Yeah,
right?
but yeah, and they say it verbatim. Yeah, it's supposed to be this guy, that guy.
That family was out of Newark.
That family was a New York-based family. They were out of Newark and Elizabeth. Yeah, they had connections all over. But yeah. Head up by John Riggy. John the Eagle Riggy was the boss of the family for a long time. But they were a Jersey-based family, and, you know, they kind of, and again, they mirrored that Soprano family.
So how true is it, like Johnny Sachs, what did he work in New York, but he lived in Jersey?
So I knew that guy. Yeah. I knew the real Johnny Sachs.
You know the real guy?
Yeah. I knew the real guy in my case. Yeah. He was a New York guy. He was a New York decav, and he ran the Jersey side of things. He actually vetted me out. Yeah. He vetted me out from, yeah. He kept an eye on me because my capo was on parole.
Let me ask you a question. How come you're still walking around?
I got protection. I'm never without.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Yeah. It's all right, puss. It's all right. I'm good.
You know? I can't help you out.
No, I'm good. I would never put you in harm's way.
No.
But again, it goes back to what you said. Cosa Nostra is a life that they committed to. It's a game, a cat and mouse, and that's a real gangster. You know, in my world, I've been working organized crime and everything, no matter what it is, Russians, Chinese, across the board. And the common denominator is they're in it to make money, you know, and they know the law is always coming after them, the bulls, as they call us, right? The mob always refer to us as bulls. So when the bulls come for you, you know they're always watching you. So if you get caught, you know, it goes back to Quack, right? You know, if you get squeezed and you get caught doing things you shouldn't be doing, or you're a big pussy and you get caught doing things you shouldn't be doing, that's part of the game, you know?
After we did Gotti, we were down Il Cortile in Little Italy, and we had a big party. It was a union party, and me and Armand were invited. So me and Armand was standing outside with Sirico in front of Il Cortile, and there was a van across the street taking surveillance pictures of us.
Oh, I believe it.
Oh yeah.
And then there was a big article, actors hang out with real mobsters. And they said that Armand was Jimmy Kahn, but it was Armand. It wasn't Jimmy Kahn. But, Jimmy, and God bless Jimmy, and I worked with Jimmy many times.
Yeah.
Jimmy came from that.
Right.
He came from that.
He was familiar.
And and that's why I said when we were doing Mickey Blue Eyes, me, Jimmy, Sonny was on the set. All these guys were on the set. Cha-Cha was with me. God bless Cha-Cha. Right. And there's that separation,
Yeah.
Like, do you ever go up to Rayo's up in Harlem?
I've been there. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so the Rayo's is probably the only place. I mean, they're all out now as franchises, but the original Rayo's up in Harlem is the only place where a wise guy sits next to a politician.
Without a doubt.
Or a wise guy sits next to Rod Stewart.
Yeah.
Or Madonna's sitting next to a boss from Harlem. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That's what that's about.
Yeah.
We would come in on sometimes coming back from the city and stop over and have a drink. And you're sitting at the bar, and all of a sudden a wise guy would say, "Hey, I saw you Sunday night. You were good."
Yeah.
We would get respect. We got a lot of respect from the wise guys.
I know you did, yeah.
We did.
You did.
Well, I also think it's the writing with David that he didn't make Gandolfini's character, Tony Soprano, look like a wimp. He made him look like a real stand-up guy who believed in his both families. He had his vices. Yeah, he fooled around, blah, 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 blah. But he cared about his crew. He cared about his crew. That scene when they were shooting me on the boat, he said, "I loved you like a brother."
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I was talking to the kid, Samson. He plays Little Pussy in the Many Saints of Newark. And I talked to him. He goes to my acting class now. And he said that David had him come into my class and hang around with me. He said that David told him that the relationship between Big Pussy, Sal Bonpensiero, and Tony Soprano, they were like brothers.
Yeah. Yeah, and you guys made it look that way because you probably really were.
And I think he was able to capture that. One of my favorite scenes ever was I came out of the driveway, my arms up, and then we're down in the cellar, and he's frisking me, and I didn't know he was going to do that.
Yeah.
Jimmy, as an actor, he started. I said, "What? You know?" Right. And I stepped back. See, those are things that are very organic and great. The scene when I was in the bathroom crying.
Yes.
A lot of actors, my students say, "How'd you do that?" I said, "It's called sense memory. It's called emotional recall. You sit and think about the worst thing you ever did in your life, and you hope they got it on tape because you're not ready for the two or three more takes."
Right.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That'd be a tough one.
Yeah. There's the adrenaline dump. Yep. At the end of it, you only get one shot. That part, you only get one shot. The emotion that you captured, you only get one try.
Well, when Jimmy was there, he would always say to David, "Give him another take."
Okay.
That's what Jimmy did. Give him another take.
It's hard to cry twice, though. You got one good cry.
Oh, man, I got some of my kids in my class. They can cry all day. I can't.
Really?
They just cry. Okay, all right. Bring it back. Relax. I mean, we're only acting, Okay. All right, this has been pretty cool.
Yeah, we'll wrap it up
thanks
there.
A lot,
and,
Vinny.
Well, listen, you got to keep in touch with us. Seriously, let us know when you're out here, Vin.
I'll get in touch with you guys. I promise. All right?
Right on.
Sounds
Thank
good.
you so much, man. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Have a good day, guys.
Be well. I'll talk to you. You too.
Bye-bye.
Ciao.
For behind-the-scenes photos, merchandise, and exclusive content, visit InsideTheLife.org. Rate, review, and subscribe wherever you get podcasts.